Are you caregiving for someone living with dementia and at a loss over how to deal with some common and sometimes frustrating behaviors? What can you do when they ask the same question over and over? How can you calm their anxiety while keeping your own in check? And how can you handle scary situations like when hallucinations set in? We're talking about challenging behaviors and dementia caregiving today on Still Time for Joy, with some tips on how to help your loved one while taking care of your own needs too. Hello, I'm Sandra Levine, host of Still Time for Joy. My guest today is Deb Hallisey, a caregiver advocate and certified dementia practitioner. Welcome to the show, Deb.
Hey, Sandy. Thanks for having me back.
You're welcome. So, caregiving for a loved one with dementia can be an immensely rewarding experience, but also sometimes very difficult and very frustrating. And what works one day may not work the next, right?
100%. You can try something and think, I've solved it. And then the next day, the next hour, it stops working. You're constantly playing detective and figuring out what's going to help.
So let's start first with repetitive questions, because I think most people who have been caregivers for someone with dementia have experienced this. First, why does it happen and what can you do about it?
Well, it happens really most often for several reasons. First of all, they can no longer hold on to information, right? Like you tell them you're going to the doctor's tomorrow and they're like, what are we doing tomorrow? So that short-term memory, the ability to hold on to information, degrades throughout the entire process. Sometimes we have an event coming up and we let them know about that event, and it could be a week, a day, a month ahead, and we don't realize how that can be causing anxiety, and so they question, where are we going, what are we doing all the time, when does it happen? And along with just forgetting, like they know something's going on, but they don't remember what it is.
So what are some things that caregivers can do to help with the repetitive questions?
I would say the first thing is give little information about upcoming events, like don't tell them weeks and months ahead of time. Now, I know of some cases where families have talked about it and not realized that their person heard them, and so now they know that the event is coming up. And so when you're getting repetitive questions about that, there's several things you could do. One of which would be put a memory whiteboard someplace in the house. And when they ask the question, you have the opportunity to say, oh, it's on your whiteboard in your room. Well, let's go in and look at it, or you can go in and look at it. And one of the things that does is give them a little bit of control. The other thing you could do is give them cue cards, literally write down what's going to go on. The problem with that a lot of times is the person can lose them. So I find that they work best like if you're in the car and you're going someplace and they keep saying, where are we going, where are we going? You say, oh, it's on your cue card. Go ahead and read it, because that ability to read really is one of the last things to go. If it's a repetitive question about something in the home, for example, one of the clients I was working with, a coat that was always left on the kitchen counter became, who's visiting? Put the coat away. Like, take anything out of the environment that's going to cause repetitive questioning. And then you can use distraction and redirection. They ask the question, you answer it, and then you move on to something else. And the bottom line always, when you're dealing with someone who has a memory impairment, is don't criticize them. They're not doing it to annoy you. They really don't remember, or they're really anxious about it.
Sure, and I want to underscore that with everything we're talking about today, the person living with dementia can help it. We're certainly not blaming them. We're just trying to provide some strategies that can help them feel better and, of course, help you avoid some of the frustration that comes with some of these behaviors. So one thing I was taught early on was not to say, don't you remember, to my mom. It's something you have to learn to do, because in my mom's case, the disease came on slowly. So at first you kind of can't believe that your loved one doesn't remember. But then when you really come to understand what's going on, you realize, no, they don't remember. So please don't say, don't you remember? And it's hard, but don't get frustrated and angry about it either, because they really can't help it, right?
100%. I mean, especially in the beginning when they know there's something wrong, don't remember is like a slap in the face. It's like, oh, right, okay, there's a problem here. I'm not 100% sure what's going on. And it just makes them feel awful. And as time moves on, they really don't remember.
Sure. And on to number two, which is talking about becoming anxious and fearful. And as heartbreaking as it is to see, this happens to many, many people with dementia. So, why does that happen, and what can we do about that?
You know, Sandy, there is as many reasons as that happens as there are people. I mean, it could be your person is anticipating going away or going someplace and they're really anxious about it. And a lot of that anxiety comes from they know something's wrong and they're afraid to socialize. They're afraid they're not going to remember the name. They're afraid they're going to, someone will say something to them and they're not going to be able to react to it. And so, that's part of it. And then oftentimes things that we think are normal can be very scary for them. As the sun sets and as the light goes down, there could be something in the corner that they don't recognize what it is, and it becomes something like, oh my gosh, that's a person, or that's going to get me. And so there's fear and worry in that as well. There's so many reasons. I'm kind of like, don't even worry about what the reason is, deal with the reality of it, right? Because who knows why they're feeling anxious or worried or fearful. You know your person, right? Like, they don't have to say, I'm scared or worried. You can tell by their behavior. Maybe they're wringing their hands. Maybe they're just really sad. Maybe they're just really lethargic. They don't have any interest in what they used to like a puzzle or watching TV, whatever it is. So you want to distract them, right? And you want to talk about something they enjoy or do something with them that they enjoy. Now, that could be putting a puzzle together. That can be looking through memory books. That could be music. I mean, I have seen a real change in some of my clients, older adults, when they got a headset and created a playlist that was music from their era, and they loved it. If they're feeling nervous, use touch to provide a sense of safety and reassurance. Like, if somebody is really nervous about something, sit next to them and just gently stroke their hand or their arm. That touch can make them feel so safe. Keep them busy, right? Schedule an activity for the day, something that's going to be fun, or go out to lunch. Whatever you can do that kind of takes their mind off of what they're thinking or worried about, or, that repetitive in their mind about what's going on. I'm so scared, that kind of thing.
And again, with my mom, we saw this when we would travel, and she traveled all over the world during her lifetime. And we would be doing something as simple as going to visit a relative, in another state. And it was so anxiety provoking for her. Maybe it has something to do with also they feel a loss of control. They know they're confused in the beginning, and it's very scary for them. And of course, changing their environment can also be very, very anxiety provoking. So finally, we're going to talk about hallucinations and delusions and some strategies you can try in addition to consulting with the doctor to see if medication is needed. And once again, with my mom, she lived in Germany during World War II, and it was a terrible time, of course. And when she lived in assisted living, she had terrible hallucinations that there were soldiers outside her assisted living facility, and she had a lot of nightmares and delusions about the war, a war that happened 80 years prior, still going on. So how do you help somebody who's having hallucinations or delusions?
That's a really interesting one, because the common thing people will say is go along with the belief, right? Well, that doesn't help if, like your mom, they're living in such a time of war and feeling that the soldiers are coming to get them. And so in a situation like that, really distraction is the only thing you can do in some way, shape, or form. That distraction can be sitting down and not even saying anything or listening to them, and it can be just gently, again, the reassurance of touch. It can be, okay, mom, we're safe in here. Nothing's going to happen. Or I'll call the police and they'll get them away. And just pretend to call the police, right? Anything you can do to make them not feel like someone is coming to get them. So distraction in that situation is really important. I had a client where when they were having hallucination, they would ask a lot of questions. And if you went along with the belief, like asking them more questions or telling them stuff, it just generated more and more questions and higher levels of anxiety. So again, distraction was the best thing they could do, and music was a huge help for them. We don't realize how much the environment will feed into hallucinations as well. Wearing glasses so they can see it's a lamp and not a person. Wearing hearing aids so things are not muffled and they're not thinking, oh my gosh, that's a gunshot, when in reality it's a commercial or the dog barking. Even making sure that there's adequate lighting in the house that does not create shadows. At the nighttime, pull down the blinds. Make sure that you have lamps that have like a daylight kind of bulb in it. Everything that to make the room bright for them to see and not create shadows is going to help to not, and I'm going to say this, it's not going to end them. This is a huge part of this dementia journey. And so just recognizing that and having things in your back pocket that you can use, like distraction, like, here, mom, put on your glasses, look, see, that's the lamp, or let's go over and look and touch it. It'll be okay. And then making sure that the lighting is adequate and very natural in the house are all things you're going to have to do all along this journey, because hallucinations 9 out of 10 times is a part of it.
And I also have heard in the past that with different questions they may ask, whether they're about hallucinations or something else, it's important to acknowledge what they're saying. Acknowledge it, and then after you've shown them that you've heard them and you're acknowledging what they're afraid of or what their question is, then perhaps distract them by moving on to a different activity or talking about a different subject matter. And I know in some cases you've said that it's good to go along with what they're saying. And I would think of an example perhaps could be when somebody still believes that their husband is going to come any minute and the husband may have died years prior. Is that an instance when it's okay to go along with this belief?
It truly is. It truly is. I think one of the most interesting things is in Tracy Cram Perkins' book, where her dad heard on the TV a movie with gunfire, and he completely freaked out, afraid that people were coming in, and he had his coat and he was ready to go, and she was like, okay, Dad, okay, I'm going to call the cops, and then we're going to do this. We're gonna take this coat and we're going to put it in the right here, and we're going to shut the door, and they're not going to be able to get there. Completely fabricated. I don't think I would have had the creativity to do that. But he's like, okay, they're not coming in. The cops have been called. That's going to keep us safe. We're done. And it's like you do things to kind of talk them off the ledge so that, when they're down, you can distract them. Because trying to distract somebody in that moment is never going to happen. They're going to be even more agitated. So to go along with the belief in certain situations so that you can kind of get them calmed down and off the ledge allows you to do the distractions.
Well, as we said at the beginning, there are so many rewards in helping your loved one with dementia, but it can also be very, very challenging. Deb Hallisey, caregiver advocate and certified dementia practitioner, you've given us so many great tips for helping our loved one with dementia. Thank you so much for your expertise, and thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you, Sandy.
If you found today's show helpful, please share the information with someone who needs it, and follow Still Time for Joy for more practical tips on weathering life's storms, as well as inspiring stories of people who have turned their pain into purpose. Please consider supporting the work that goes into producing the show on Patreon. Follow Sandra Levine Productions on Facebook and YouTube, and learn more at sandralevine.com.